All right, y'all. Walter is in the house this morning. He's in the combo room, and I'm so excited to have him with us. He is literally a selfless champion of others. If you check out his LinkedIn, I mean, he's always hyping people up, putting you on to who's in his community. But today is all about him. We're going to unpack his story, his journey, how he's finding his way both as someone who's working in corporate and in the creator economy. And without further ado, Walter, welcome to the Combo Room podcast.
Hey man, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. We need people to like hype each other up. We don't always give like get our flowers and stuff. And I'm just very big on just like highlighting and showing love to people because I benefited from a lot of love from my community. So anytime I see someone who's like doing something really cool, I like to shout it out. Because someone once told me I could find a million ways to like a million reasons like why something won't work, but not as many like why something will. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. So I just like to show you know, so love, let people know, like, man, you're killing it. You're killing it, just in case there's any
Yes.
self doubt. So, yeah, and I'm happy to be a part of this conversation, man. I like what you're doing.
Thank you. Well, speaking of killing it, I mean, let's just unpack your resume. Just let's get it out the way. You've, I feel like, been at the intersection of creativity and corporate and figuring out how to create stuff out of nothing. Walk us through what you've been able to achieve in your career and how that's translated into your creator journey.
Mm, you're asking me this at the right time because I've like taken moments to truly sit and be like, oh, hold up. Okay. Okay. I've done some cool things. So my first job out of college was at a startup tech company where I was working customer support online chat, and it was sucked. It was annoying. I was managing like 10 chats at the same time, and these were like people who have these small businesses and using our software to help them sell across multiple platforms. And I like to start there because it's interesting as a creator economy is kind of turned into a place where you have to have a true sales process in order to truly like monetize, right? And for the longest time, I was like, I'm not a salesperson, and there's nothing in my resume that speaks to that. But I've helped to build a lot of systems and stuff to help people to monetize, whether they're small businesses selling their merch, their products, their digital products, whatever it is, across multiple channels. To then I moved from that company where I got to like experience project management and stuff, and right, I ended up going from like customer support to helping the development team build certain features for particular customers and like generated like a whole additional stream of revenue for that startup too. And then I moved over to this like sports apparel brand where I started to get deeper into like the heart of what it's like to actually be in a small business
Hmm.
and truly need to grow something. So still e-commerce operations. And at one point, I almost became a CMO of this other product company. They were selling like model trains for a lot of people who are hobbyists, right? And so that's like a little taste of like a lot of creators start from creating about their hobbies. And I was beginning to start to work with a few people who were hobbyists. But then I made a strong pivot from this whole e-commerce operations world to the podcast production world and entertainment and media and creative economy by getting a job as a podcast producer for a B2B podcast production agency. And that was a strong pivot moment because before then, like I was very interested in podcasting, becoming a creator. I was waiting for my invite to the Breakfast Club. So glad that
Yeah.
didn't happen because I would not have been ready. Charlamagne would have asked one crazy question, would be like, ah. So yeah, that didn't happen. But I got a job as a podcast producer and I got to see what it's like to use content to help to grow a business. So once again, kind of in this sales world without really realizing it, using content to do so. And I was there for a few years and then got an opportunity to um, go build a podcast network for a black owned broadcast media company that is Urban One. And just from scratch. And that's like a moment where it's like, okay, like there's all sorts of jobs in the creator economy, but this is one where I get to actually build something from like the not necessarily the ground up because the company existed and they had some, platforms and resources, but still it's something that did not exist before. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
go over to iHeart to do that. I can't go over to Revolt and do that. Can't go to Amazon or anywhere else to do that. So I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm taking this. I'm taking this. So yeah, I'm been able to build a podcast network, which is yet another, once again, just creating more opportunities for a company to generate revenue, but also a lot of creators to monetize, whether they were before or not. It's like be able to create this environment where they could just focus on their creativity, getting their podcasts out, and we have a system in place to help with like selling and increasing revenue opportunities. So um yeah, I could keep talking, I guess, but that's kind of like the highlight of everything.
I'm curious with you being able, I think there's a consistent through line with being a builder there and being an innovator. When you take on a role, especially like building out a podcast network or, being a podcast producer and having to take elements that are, I mean, just ideas that just might be inspiration, but then
hmm
actually be able to execute it, press record, get it distributed, promote it, all the above. Like how have you found your way in that? Have you always been somebody that's been able to see projects through from concept to creation, or was it like a muscle that you had to work on and you kind of found your process in that?
Well, I think like to be able to do something well, you gotta fail along the way. You gotta make mistakes. You gotta try. You gotta shoot for the moon. There's definitely been projects where I was dealing with something where it was like someone who's a TV personality and this other personality, like, big name people getting ready to launch something, and I didn't properly evaluate the situation. I thought it
Mm,
was just like some, just thing they were starting. But the night before recording, I found out like, oh, y'all trying to get this on TV. And just realizing while I did do what was asked of me, I didn't do what was needed, right? And that's where I learned
wow.
to really be the executive, even if you think like if you don't have all the answers, like even that it's not your role or responsibility, still it's important for me to just know everything that's going on, right? And I guess like if I were to pull that back to something, I don't know, maybe like playing soccer actually, because I used to play soccer. Like my dream was actually to be on the U.S. men's national team, like the World Cup that's
Mm,
happening this year in Atlanta. Actually, I might have been too old by now, but my plan was to be on that team that brought the World Cup home to the U.S. So I guess when you're on a soccer team, you are one player, but you kind of have to meld and mesh with everybody. You have to connect with someone who's on the opposite side of the field with you and just know how everyone plays and everything. So I think it's just important when you're just going into a project, whether it's creative or anything, to
mhm,
have a comprehensive understanding of everything that's going on, things that are not your job, things that are your job. And if I had had that mindset, kind of been the executive, even if though that wasn't my role or responsibility, I would have been able to properly plan and prep those personalities so that they were successful too. Because when you don't get a project to the finish line, it's not just you who messes up, but you kind of mess it up for everybody.
mhm.
Even if that's not your responsibility for real. No, not always, but when it comes to being a builder, I love that word too, that title. I like that. Uh, I don't know. I was a Lego kid, so I just like to build things and see how it works and
Yeah.
everything too. So I like to know all the different pieces and all that too. I like to think I'm like a Michael Schofield mindset, but I don't think I think he's a little more advanced engineering than me. But
That's really interesting because I feel like even just seeing how you view your role as like, uh, a piece of a larger pie, if you will, I think people who are kind of especially like I'm thinking about myself, I'm a kinda like a one-man show doing the thing, and I feel like there's so
yeah,
many creators out here that are having to wear so many hats, and how would you advise someone who has had to have somewhat of a systemized approach or someone who has had to learn to ask questions of those he's collaborating with? Um, how would you advise somebody who is kind of at the beginning of their journey and thinking that, hey, I can I can do all this on my own, what is it that they don't know about scaling and the systems involved to make something a success? Can they really run it on their own, or is there a point where it's like you're just gonna have to embrace the idea of getting a team?
Oh yeah. I truly believe all things are possible. Earlier you mentioned something about like, just be able to make something out of nothing. I feel like, that's just something in the black community or any community, or just if you've lived in like impoverished and just had to do that, you just kind of learn how to do some of those things. But I think where people mess up and where I've messed up as well is the expectations, right? Like earlier I mentioned waiting for my invite to the Breakfast Club. That's something that happens once you've already made a buzz and a name for yourself, right? And to do that requires a lot of different visibility. And to have that visibility, that could happen overnight, but usually happens over a consistent period of time of putting things out there. I think like, we're on a podcast right now, so we take a look at some of the biggest podcasts or creators even. Actually, like who's one of your like favorite like podcasters or creators?
One of my favorites, right now, I'm loving Stephen Bartlett's, Diary of a CEO.
Mm, that's a
Um
good example actually right there in
okay,
that.
yeah.
Right. So we know Stephen Bartlett, Diary CEO, he's under a lot of fire right now. But he's someone who puts out very long interviews, very highly produced, and has an exceptional like marketing strategy, right? And so we look at him and we're like, because I've done it too. I've looked at it like, okay, I like how he put his like teasers out online. I like how he has different social assets, one for the launch, one for the week where you're promoting the episode, one for like a few months back, doing a callback to a previous episode. On his podcast feed, he has full episodes, but also like callback. So you could be like, hey, this is one of our best episodes. Check it out. I think that we see all of what he's putting out there, but we don't see all the people that are behind it. So we have these expectations to do something like that, to build it on our own, and we can. But I think our expectations put us in this trap that stops us from actually be able to do what we can successfully, right?
Uh-huh.
So listing out all the different stuff he does to roll out his podcast episodes, it is a lot for one person to do. And he literally has one person whose job it is to create the teasers. Like they spend multiple
Right.
days just working on the teaser. That's something I do like within a few hours. And it's a lot of work, but it's like he spends multiple days. There's a lot of psychology and techniques in there. So, um, what a lot of creators don't always think about is the amount of resources and personnel that it takes to hold up something as large as a Stephen Bartlett or even like a Kai Cenat. They just see the end result and be like, I could do that. And he can, but it's just very challenging. So for me, what I've learned is to have certain systems in place, but then also most importantly is to know my capacity and also my limits. Like I
Mhm.
work full time. I'm working on growing a business as well, doing this podcast. I also have certain responsibilities that, one, if you have a job, you're committed to that job. And if you're not ready to, be out on your own, make sure you keep that job. And then two, the responsibility of just like having a business. Then also just like existing as a human being, it's important to feed ourselves and heal ourselves and everything too. So having like a realistic, um, operations, like way that you're working, it just with whatever time you have and being okay with that, I think is the biggest part of it. Because once we start to want to do more, it's like you can do more, you can push yourself, but if you don't know your limits, you don't know how far past your limits that you're going, right? So if you know you can, like, if you could do an all nighter, then cool. But can you do all nighters like 3 days in a row? Like
Right.
maybe you can, but just know you're kind of pushing past that limit. If you keep doing that consistently, you're gonna snap your capacity bands. You're gonna burn out, and burning out multiple times in a row could lead to a lot of like health problems, a lot of mental problems, and just like feeling like an absolute failure.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we burn out for nothing. So
Yeah, I know I've found myself, like, just trying to diagnose why I would have so many starts and stops,
mm.
and I found myself, because I'm like, I do this for other people, I'm like, "Why
Yeah,
can't I do this for myself?"
yeah.
And to your point, it's like you really have to assess how much time do you actually have? And also, just because you're good at something, it doesn't mean that you're going to be passionate to do it for yourself. Case in point, how many people do we know that work in social media and or media and marketing, and they are able to do incredible work promoting projects. I know of some people that they work in the music industry, and so they're like helping artists break, or they're working for established artists and doing awesome campaigns. Their personal social media presence is terrible, and by terrible, it's that you would not even be able to make the correlation between the amazing work that they do and the personal evidence of what they do
Mhm.
personally on social. And I think perhaps maybe they have caught on to something, is in that they know they only have but so much time and they're going to cut work off. But then there are the crazy ambitious, creatorpreneurs out here too, that are like, okay, we're going to shoot for the 3 all-nighters, and we're going to do the sprint and then see if we can do something sustainable. And I found myself doing this thing where I would be able to make great progress or great leaps, but not be consistent. And so then I'm like figuring out, okay, there's got to be something, and surely have not figured it out fully, but I was like, there's got to be something that I can do to be more sustainable in my output so I can see the outcomes that I'm looking for. And so hearing you talk about that, I really think that one small tweak that I made, because I'm kind of at that spot thinking about like, okay, how do I start collaborating? How do I get with the team? How do I just at least start outsourcing small pieces of the puzzle? And I was like, I have to make the workflow more efficient. There are too many blockages to going from start to finish. If you're gonna be a one man show, one woman show, you've got to figure out a way to eliminate the friction in your workflow. And so I was using so many so many tools, one for scheduling, one for recording, one for this. I'm uploading here, downloading here, making a graphic here. And so then I realized, I was like, oh, if I trim my tech stack at minimum, I can save time. And I think for so many people, maybe the first step is evaluating what you have capacity to do and then looking at your tools to see, one, what can I do amazingly well? And then also, what can I offload? What can I, even if it's something as small as using, like I'm promise I'm not going to be a conversation narcissist and talk over my guests.
I'm here with you. I'm here with you. Yeah.
Like, I started and I was talking to another guest in a previous episode about this, like literally just even if it's like using your notes app to like start scheduling and systematizing the way you do outreach. So then that way you're not guessing when you reach out to people. That way it's like you almost have a systemized approach to making sure that you can at least get to the result you're trying to get to because you've got the output straight. Now, nothing's guaranteed, and I'm sure, I'd love to dive into how you've been able to go from when you're creating something out of nothing and it's a great idea and getting other people involved with it, like getting partners, people who want to invest in it, people who want to sponsor, or people who want to align their brand with a new concept or a new idea. Like, what has been your secret sauce to finding some level of consistent success with that?
Question for an answer. I want to play with my camera real quick because I feel like I look crazy. Another part about it is like being a one man show. It's like when I'm doing this for other people, I could like adjust real time.
Mhm.
Like I think this much better.
Low key, I'm over here. I'm like, if I could have just remembered to put on lotion before.
That's what took me so long to get ready. I needed
I'm like,
3 minutes. I was like, hold up, is that some ass shoulder?
I'm like, this winter is trying to do me in. I'm like, okay, but at any rate, y'all, we in this
Yeah.
together. All right, so
Yeah.
we talking about monetizing. Walter, help us
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, also in addition to that, right? Because I realized there's one other part of your previous question I didn't answer, but it plays into this. It's like some things we shoot for, but we're not ready for it yet. Whether it's
Mm,
having a team, pushing for monetization, like all of that comes when everything's ready for it. So sometimes people get a team too early and the team could fall apart. You might not even you might be a terrible leader at the beginning because you're still figuring certain things out. Um,
that's so
so
good.
yeah, but for the monetization part, there are a lot of different ways to monetize. There's ways to monetize from the very get go. There's ways to monetize after you've built an audience. So to take a step back, the most popular way of monetizing something like a serial show is through advertisers or brand deals. And that's where a certain company, brand, whatever it is, wants to get their message out, wants to reach people, and they use content to do that, not their own content, but they will spend money to get their message out to people, right? And as a business, you want to make sure you get the most out of your money. So oftentimes you will go to someone who either is the best person to deliver that message or the best platform to reach a large number of people, right? And so a lot of us, we start something, we go off like, oh, I want like Coca-Cola or all these things, or a lot of like in podcasters, like Squarespace sponsors a lot of business ones. You see here a lot of prize pick ads for a lot
Yeah,
of entertainment brand. Some alarm company might sponsor a podcast because they interrupt interviews. But these companies come because they want to reach a certain audience, and so they're gonna, you know, that's some things are just unattainable. But even with that being said, there are brands who will reach out to you because you are the right person to deliver that message, and you're using content in a way that can speak to their people, and that can happen at regardless of what size you're in. So back to like expectations, you kind of have to know what it is you're building and why you're building and who it's for to attract the right people. Um, that's where like companies like where I work at, we deal with a lot of large enterprise clients who want to advertise and reach a large number of people. So we're able to have those relationships and bring them to creators. But for a lot of independents, they'll either build those relationships themselves through just like meeting people. They could also, create relationships with local small businesses in your area to, work out some type of deal, whether it's like, whatever money you spend on the podcast, it'll go in the ad, but maybe also I'll do some stuff on social media for you. So there's all those like different ways to advertise, but another way that people don't always talk about, and I think this is one that's becoming a lot more popular now, is monetizing your own stuff by creating services or digital products or even building a community that you can sell directly to your audience. And I think that's really, really special because something I learned from Roberto Blake, who's this big
yeah.
YouTuber. He's a black YouTuber who helps a lot of other YouTubers get their YouTube stuff together. He shared just like how when you do create your own digital product and you sell it, even if it's for like a small amount, a dollar, and you get enough sales, that's data that you could then take to an advertiser and be like, hey, I know I might not have like a million downloads or a million followers, but I do have proof that I can sell directly to my audience if it's something that they actually want and will be good for them. And here are the numbers to show like what I've been able to do. And numbers are really what tell the story. Like people focus on downloads a lot, but there's so many numbers to use to tell your story and why you'd be a great partner to work with. So, and then also when you kind of create your own ways to monetize, you really do own the whole process, and then you get to be a lot more selective about who you work for. Um, yeah, I'll stop there. But yeah.
Well, actually, I want you to double click on that. We talked about this before we started hitting record. We're like, my phrase, if I want you to go deeper on something, is to double click.
Mhm.
Well, I think this is really important, and I'm gonna tell a little bit of a story, but we're coming back to the whole point of like knowing your numbers and the numbers that explain to a partner that you are the ideal partnership, or you're somebody who makes sense for them to join hands with and, do this work. Um, Something that I learned in communications very early on, because I work in nonprofit right now too. And it's excuse me, it's so difficult to get people who are doing amazing work on the ground
Mhm.
to pause long enough to do their metrics. And it's almost counterintuitive because in the department that I sit in, the uh we're at the intersection of the programs and the work that people are doing and the communications that go out to help fund the work. So in order to fund the work, we're always mining for stories. We're always getting highlights from events that have happened and things that are going on within the organization. And we're packaging those talking points and or stories and or metrics and saying, hey, if you would like to make this kind of impact, partner with us. These people are doing this kind of work every day.
Mhm.
Well, I think the same is true for creators, but perhaps I think there might be a disconnect in understanding what numbers really matter to the brand side because vanity metrics, I think, everybody might have this idea of, okay, well, I can reach X amount of followers and maybe I can see this kind of traction. But I think maybe you can help be a little sobering to creators
Oh,
who are
okay.
looking to uh monetize their work, but they're like, I don't know how to position myself. I don't know what numbers to package and sell as my story as to why a brand should partner with me. Like, what numbers are you talking about when you say like these are the numbers that tell that story?
Gotcha. And to be sobering as well, because sometimes you hear certain numbers, and you're like, "Oh, I ain't close to that at all." I mentioned the Breakfast Club earlier, so I use Charlemagne as an example. He has a podcast. I remember once they mentioned how they get like a maybe 1 to 2 million downloads on their podcast a month in
Hmm.
totality. And that's like, and they have very big name brands that work with them. So the numbers, the metrics everyone could follow for podcasters, the main metric that everyone bases the size of your podcast and the value of it on is downloads. For YouTubers, it's mostly views. For content creators on social media, it's like a mix of followers but also views and reach. One thing that's a universal metric for everyone is impressions. So like views and downloads are kind of similar in a sense, and you could do like a deep dive into like the true differences and the science and everything. But um essentially it's like how many people are watching or listening or viewing what you're putting out. Impressions are a little bit different where it's really just like um how your content shows up, like how many places it does. Is it like, are people seeing it on the homepage, the explore page, a browsing thing, a suggested search, all this stuff? There's different impressions there. Those are like oftentimes the first numbers that people look at. The following, of course, as well. Another thing that's really important to how successful that ad is, if you do the advertiser route, is when you get into like more like the watch time and the completion time and like how far in your audience gets to the episode, right? Because usually when someone's advertising, there's an ad at the very beginning,
Hmm.
which a lot of people see, but where a lot of the money is made is in the episodes. For a lot of long form content creators, whether you're, YouTube or podcast, it's those ads in the middle of the episode. And you can have an ad in there. You might have like a ton of views, but if people are not making it past that 10-minute mark, they may never hear the other ad, which means they'll never even hear about the offer, even if it's a perfect offer for them. So
Hmm.
it's also important to know when you're communicating to these brands. For podcaster, it's the listening consumption time. You can see that in Apple Podcasts. You can see it in Spotify. For YouTubers, I would focus on that watch time and see where people are kind of dropping off. I don't know if brands always pay attention as much to that, but it's important for you to know just so you know how successful you can be, and also how to get people to continue to move on like all the way through. Because really, as a creator, you want people to watch the completely get to the end of what you're doing. Not everyone will, but that's your goal. And people who do get to the end, that's your core audience. But then there's a lot of other numbers that you could do too, right? There's a woman named Naya Peoples who's really good at helping people to create a whole ecosystem around your brand, right? Because that's just like the core number, right? But if you have like a website and you promote your website with a podcast or your YouTube or whatever, you could track link clicks from your podcast, YouTube, whatever, out to your website and track that. You have your website analytics because maybe like you have really great SEO and you get a huge amount of traffic on your website too. I always know if an episode I did is successful or not because sometimes I'll get like an analytics notification about like, oh, this episode you did, this like page has been getting a lot of traffic recently, and that lets me know that a guest I have is out here doing their thing. And
Mm.
I always hit them up and be like, hey, by the way, your episode's doing some good numbers. Your website's getting some traffic. I haven't promoted it, so I know you doing your thing. People are finding it because you out here doing it, and that's like just a way for me to show love. But yeah, there's a lot of numbers out there that tell a story on social media. I mentioned views, of course, but there's saves, there's comments, and the comments is a really good gold mine. That'll be a metric that'll
Mm.
exist forever. Comments, saves, and sends tells you that this piece of content was so good or did something that made someone want to share it with somebody. Saves is like a whether they actually do or not, it's like an intention to go back to this for later.
Mhm.
And then comments is like something triggered you to be a part of this conversation too. And those are always important for brands to know of as well. So there's lots of different numbers. We could double click further, but that's a lot
I
of numbers
mean,
to tell a story.
listen, we got some time. Like, educate the people. I feel like the metrics thing is, um, for somebody who is like me, where you can kind of almost like go down the rabbit hole. It's almost a little dangerous because then, like, you're like, oh, let me build out a dashboard. Let me like do all this stuff and
Yeah.
overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
So perhaps for the creators who are out here trying to be efficient with their time, make the most impact. And they're doing it either with the lean team or they're doing it on their own. What are the most important things they should be tracking? Like the top things they should be tracking, and in a rinse and repeat cycle, making sure that they are feeding what actions feed those kinds of metrics, if that is a clear question.
Yeah. Um, there's another actually metric too, and that's how the kind of the quantity, right, that you put out in a period of time. Because another thing, advertisers, not just advertisers actually. So I think like we obsess a lot over advertisers and brands to be a part of our stuff, but really, what really makes you a successful creator is the people that tune into your stuff, right? So let's kind of ignore advertisers for a second because advertisers really want the people. We always like I lose myself trying to follow the advertiser and monetizer, but it's really all about like who decides to spend their time listening to what you're putting out or watching what you're putting out. So back to views and downloads and stuff like that, those are probably the best numbers to track, but I personally would highly encourage everybody who's creating to find a way to build some sort of community. And that's a trap as well because there's a lot of like software that exists to build communities, create communities like School, Patreon. There's a whole bunch of them
Yeah, I
out
think like
there.
Mighty Networks, I think is
Mighty
out there.
Networks,
Yeah.
yeah, Group App, Circle.
Yeah.
Those are big, exist in like the business thought leadership space. Patreon exists in the creator space, but there's a ton, and all of them are great. But being able to build, like create something and curate that community is really, really special and will be incredibly valuable as you continue to grow. Like a lot of people who get canceled, but don't really get canceled, they don't really get canceled because they have a very, very core community that's like not ready to let them go. And
Yeah,
so they remain where they are and they're able to sell directly to them. So they don't need advertisers or brands in order to be successful. So, but there's a lot of free ways to build a community as well, and like YouTube is building out their community. There's still Facebook groups that still works. Threads is kind of like it's not really your own community, but there's ways to kind of build within there.
mhm,
Um, Email is probably the best way to kind of build something because you have an
yes.
email list and you don't need any platform. You go everywhere. Substack is growing, and that's a kind of like a community type of platform too. So I think if I was well, not if I am a creator.
Yes.
Let me as a creator right now, what I'm focusing on, like I'm not super focused on monetization. I'm super focused on putting out content consistently so that I can build a community alongside of it because you want to be a part of people's like daily or weekly habits and rituals, something they check out when they're getting ready for work, when they go into bed, well, when they should be going to bed, but they're doom scrolling, in between work and all that stuff. It's very important for you to put out content consistently. So like you mentioned before, it might have to like you might not be able to do the super produced thing, but maybe like a smaller version of that. But it's just putting out good content consistently, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, just making sure you show up when people expect you to show up and find ways to talk directly to your people. That's hard sometimes because sometimes it takes a minute for people to be like, okay, yeah, let me like send a message out or comment here or there, but there's more ways to do that now than there were previously.
So I'm going to affirm everything you just said and almost even just double down on the newsletter piece because hands down, the most effective tool in terms of an owned media channel that I've seen thus far is my newsletter. Metrics can be trash across every other platform, but that newsletter, the audience in terms of I've been doing it for like a little over 100 weeks, and that audience is when I tell you stable,
Mhm.
stable, like they are bought in to your message. And I think there's something different about people who can passively um, just consume your content on social, but there's something about somebody saying, "Hey, I'm gonna give you my email because I'm interested in what you're saying." And also something that I found is like even just like building connections and relationships on social media, LinkedIn in particular. I found that people like even the past couple days, I was just I got a DM yesterday. Someone's like, "Oh, hey, I just subscribed to your newsletter. Like, love what you're talking about." Didn't even ask, but because and I've got this discipline from who did I get this from? Oh my gosh, I forgot. If I remember, I promise I'll post about it to give them credit. But they were talking about just simplifying even your link in bio. Like the only link you need
Oh,
is
yeah.
your newsletter. Like, do not give people a bunch of choices because your only goal is to, it's as you're talking about, create that community. And from there, to your point, like you can weather pretty much any storm because you're always interacting with and talking with people who are bought into your message. And really, I feel like they're just bought into you personally because they know you, they like you, they trust you. And, yeah, I just think that you're spot on, with that, and I think
Mhm.
something that is by far the most rewarding is when I get a reply, from
Yup.
somebody
Yup.
directly, and they're like even if it's sometimes just a 2 word, they're like, "So good," and I'm like, "Oh, great," like, this thing that I, took the time to, make sure that I continued the conversation on, it resonated, or some people will go as far as to I mean, like, just lay it all out there, like, explain, like, "This is where I am, and this is how the message helped me, and this is what I'm doing," and, like, I have been floored at the audience that I've been able to, and I don't even say audience, like, it feels like just kinda cold and distant and out
It
there, like
does. I'm trying to figure out that word. Like, I don't like followers. I don't like audience. I'm
yeah,
like, bro, what? The
it almost it's really weird because I don't wanna throw around the word friend because I feel like, that's an earned thing, but if there's a if there are levels to this or circles of friends, if you will, like, that are in the sort of like, "Hey, we kinda know each other," um, I've just been so surprised to see how much value I've been able to exchange with people, and I'm, like, literally impressed by what they're doing, and they're just taking morsels of what I'm saying just based on my insights, and they're, like, taking it to into what they're doing, and I'm like, "Nah, like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm following you," and
yeah.
so it's just so great, to cultivate that community, and yes, I know we're talking about it in the context of monetizing, but I just think that it's probably the most rewarding thing as a creator because you can create and feel like you're on an island by yourself a lot. And even doing a newsletter because it's unless you're on social media, it's not growing. Or unless you're in front of people, you've got to promote it, you've got to get out there. But by far the most relationship rich channel that I have. And I'm looking forward to figuring out ways to authentically monetize it and not, get in the way of the relationship building that's happening there.
Well, I just want to just share how like I absolutely love that analogy, and even if friends isn't the right word, because I agree with you. If we have that mindset, then we treat our friends well, right? With a lot of respect. Respect we don't
Uh-huh.
always treat our family members with too, right? So family's kind of like a weird word too. But when we keep friends in mind, then it's like when it is time to monetize, it's like, hold on. Like me personally, I don't like to make money off of my friends.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like I want to if I'm providing a service, I'll give it to you, but I also want to make sure you're good, you're straight. I'll go above and beyond. I might discount it. And we have that in mind. Um, you know, a lot of people in my circle are like, "No, well, raise your prices, all the changes, everything and stuff." But it's like, yo, if I'm building something, and people are choosing to listen and spend time with me. I want to make sure they're getting exactly what they came for, and I want to make sure, like, my whole thing, especially with my show, Working While Black Show, was all around like, um, sharing the information that maybe not be as accessible unless you've kind of been through it and lived it, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's like, how am I supposed to like, it feels so wrong to charge for some things sometimes. We like to do a lot of things for free, but I just like that like friend analogy, right? Because I think it's a lot more appropriate sometimes too. And for what you're doing right now, you are creating this medium that ends up developing this like intimate relationship, right? Because people are spending their time like whether they got headphones on, they're listening to your words, and
Right.
like there's just a trust that is there. With and it just kind of creates this responsibility to not just say anything, not just like promote anything, but to
Exactly.
truly get something that can continue to earn that trust, right? Like there was a brand that reached out to me off of a post. They saw a post I made and they loved it, and I was like, oh, that's what's up, because it wasn't a post that super performed well, right? But they loved it, and they're like, oh, we'd like to, work with you. And I was like, okay, cool. They love my shit. They want to pay me some money. Yeah, let's get it. But then I was like thinking about, I was like, I personally wouldn't use this. There's probably somebody who
Mhm.
could use this, but I couldn't use it. So what am I going to talk about? Like, if you're this person, you can use this for that. Yeah, I could do that, but I'm really moving into a space where it's like, I really want to truly talk about or promote things or offer things that I personally use. Or it could be just something I know a lot about and people would use, but I personally want to do the stuff that I use. And also another way to kind of help to curate those relationships, because a lot of these relationships start on social media. There's a lot of things people are saying now where it's like comment this word to get this.
Yeah.
That's kind of replacing the whole go to my LinkedIn bio. I think the LinkedIn bio is still important, but people aren't going to profiles anymore. So you
Uh-huh.
have to find a way to make it as easy as possible so that no one has to do any extra work is to
Exactly.
get that. So there's lots of tools out there. ManyChat's the most popular one. They have a really decent free plan where, you just say comment book, and also send you this digital ebook on how to do X, Y, and Z. And then when you do that, you're able to, collect that email if they choose to share it with you, and then they could be a part of that email newsletter. And last thing I'll say is my favorite tools right now for email are Beehive and Substack. They're two completely different tools. Substack's more of like a social
Uh-huh.
community that you also get email as well, and Beehive is strictly email, but you could create your own website and everything too. But
Yeah.
those are like the two that I always tell people about right now.
Now, Beehive has not paid me a dime for what I'm about to say.
Come
Let
on,
me
Beehive, act right.
let me tell you something about Beehive. I'm gonna ride for Beehive 10 toes down. Let me tell you what happened one day. I was just trying to, as a creative, you always just changing stuff. And so I accidentally, like, instead of deleting uh a, a, a what is it, a publication within my slate of newsletters, instead of deleting one that I wasn't using anymore, I deleted the whole account.
Mm,
And when I tell you, I was freaking out. And, I was thinking like I was just moving fast, multitasking, but the level of customer service that they extended, when I tell you, it was like, number one, I feel like when you're using some of these software as a service companies, it is so impersonal. If something happens, I mean, you ain't about to get nobody on the phone, but the level of intentionality and response and care that I received as somebody who was going through a situation where, I mean, my newsletter is nowhere near some of the massive newsletters I know that they're dealing with. And like they came to the rescue. And so I just say for anybody, and not just that, I've been kind of like looking into how Beehive handles their split of profits per se versus Substack. And you guys just look into it because obviously everybody should do their own research, but like it's just night and day compared to, I think what they've done is they've cornered the market now on understanding the future of the creator and content economy and what creators actually need versus putting out a product that, and I think I say Substack is super popular, not trashing Substack at all. But I think it's the psychology of like the type of creator that you are that it makes sense for. And I think my audience in particular, like if you are a one person show, like with the full integration of things that they have going on, like there's one place to be. And the customer service is again like top tier.
I so I'm not I was gonna use Beehive, but I chose not to. But even me choosing not to, I still recommend it because all the things that you said. There's this story that someone shared with me recently about something that happened similarly with them, where they deleted their whole thing, but it was Substack, and they didn't get that type of service. They lost all this shit.
Uh,
Um,
I'm just saying.
yeah, and I've heard actually from several people that love Beehive's team. Their whole staff is very accessible, and I actually, yeah, I fully agree with you. And like the reason I chose Substack is not anything necessarily special about Substack for real. It's just like see what they're building now. Before it was like it's hard to choose, but now it's like, oh, these are completely different things. Like you said, I, Substack is literally an additional social media platform that has email in it as well. And I'm using it more for the social aspect of it than the email part. I think at some point I will make my way back to Beehive, but as of right now, it's like you kind of have to choose all between all the different software that you have. And it's like,
Mhm.
as I'm going down this list, I realized that what I truly needed even more than email newsletter was a true CRM platform. And that put me in a whole rabbit hole of looking at HubSpot, looking at Go High Level. I'm using Stan Store right now, and Stan's like an interesting company too. And they're doing
Mhm.
this whole, have you seen their Dare to Post challenge?
I've seen content about it, and I this is honestly just me. I feel like I have to like put blinders on because I am like shiny object syndrome central. I will jump on every challenge and everything. I love what Stan because they're actually their founders. When we talked about Stephen Bartlett, that's how I found out about them, like through Diary
Same.
of a CEO, all their content, and I was like all in it. So like I see all the ads, but you bring it up because
Oh, and I will say, as far as shiny object syndrome goes, if you're on Beehive, I would not leave Beehive first. As of today, Beehives, they got it. Stan will get it, and they have some good products for what you're doing. Beehive is perfect. I forgot why I brought up Stan actually. Oh yeah, yeah. So I was just like evaluating all the different software I have, and it's like, okay, in this era right now, like last year I planned to go really hard with live streaming this year. And I was
Mhm,
gonna get Ecamm live because I think it's the best streaming software if you're streaming from your computer. But I was like, okay, I have all this different software, and it's like at a certain point, like this subscription is accessible, that's subscription accessible but when you have like 30 different subscriptions, just like what nah. So I have to like cut back and choose what I'm putting my energy into this year. So it's like I'm gonna have to circle back around to like the beehives, the e-cams, and it's not for the price point, but just more so like to do that means I have to do this certain thing with the content. I need to build an engine with the email the way I want to do it, build an engine with the live streaming to do it the way I want to do it. And it's like being okay with not doing everything all at
mhm.
once, because that's how you fall apart sometimes, unless you got a team. So, yeah.
Have you heard of Riverside before?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Riverside's a really good platform. I'm on Descript now. I moved from Riverside to Descript, but once again, for particular
mhm.
purposes. But yeah, now Riverside's a beast.
What was the, difference between the 2 for you? Because I was wondering when
Um,
you said, like, the streaming thing and trying to do things, like, all in one platform, like, what brought you to Descript?
Good question. So it was a couple things, right? Because it's like every software right now is looking to be an all-in-one software,
Mhm,
the one solution for all your needs. Riverside's competing with Descript. They're competing with the StreamYards, the Ecamm Lives to an extent. Um, and at the time, the plan I was on wasn't the plan for the live streaming, so I was about to get it, but then I was like, well, I like Riverside for podcasting. I do have another solution I can use for live streaming. It's not the same as Riverside, but it's good enough. And what I really needed was a tool that allowed me to record what I'm doing, which Riverside can do, but then also edit. And most of what I do editing wise is Adobe Premiere. But when I was looking at Riverside and I was looking at Descript, I think Descript has a much stronger editing platform than Riverside does. Riverside is nice, but Descript has been an editing platform for years, and Riverside is getting into it now. So I needed something that could do a lot right then and there, and actually really glad I went with Descript for that. But Adobe Premiere is still the place where I do a bulk of my editing for like the sharp scalpel cuts. But if it's just like, oh, you just need a little stitch here and there, I use
yeah,
Descript for that.
that's nice. I love that we just got, like, literally, did the deep dive into the tech stack, so
True. We could go
I'm
deeper. It's like there's so much, but yeah, I'm not trying. We could. That's why I say we could be here for hours, man.
yes! So let's land the plane here. We started talking about, um, earlier in the conversation about how you posted earlier today, and I'm not trying to get you to bare your soul or anything, but, like, where do you see yourself going? Like, what is your if you could just look in the future and if everything all works out, like, where are you headed? What are you doing? What are you building?
You know, in a sense, I'll bare my soul a little bit. Um, I think it's important to do things that make your younger self proud. When I was little, like I didn't grow up. I was a PBS kid, right? We didn't have cable, and we didn't have internet for the longest, so I missed out on a lot of stuff, the AOL and all that stuff. But like my grandma, she had cable, so or no, she had DirecTV for a moment and everything. And so when I got to go to her house, I got to watch everything. I was like, yeah, finally. And I remember like, you have trouble going to sleep, you do all these things, like people say count sheep or whatever. And I remember like I just thought it was always interesting, like looking at the channel guide and seeing like, well, there's Cartoon Network, Boomerang, Adult Swim, Toonami. I mean, Adult Swim, Toonami aren't separate channels, but I was spending my nights like counting all the different stuff that was a part of the Cartoon Network universe, Nickelodeon universe, the Disney universe. And I'd just be like counting like these networks. And so I think for the longest time, I really just loved the concept of having like a network, like the whole media stuff and like what's a part of what and what's here and all that stuff. So long term, what I'm building, what I'm really excited about is creating a company that produces IP, right? So for those who don't know, the intellectual property, and that's becoming a bit more of a common word now because people are realizing the importance of truly creating something that you own, right? Like we see with Ryan Coogler's deal with Sinners, like he's owns it and gets like the rights to the music and everything back in like a few years. And so there's so much you could do with that IP that he owns, all these different spin-off universes and stories he could tell, all connecting to this one central concept. And that's really what I'm building right now is this company that tells stories, that creates content, and scales it out into different universes of stuff. So it's like being able to take a comic book and turn it into a whole movie and theme park franchise and all this stuff. That's the stuff that excites me right now. Like, what stories can we tell?
Mhm.
And then from those stories, what all can we do with it? Right. And right now, I'm focused on stories that are from our culture, from people who are doing things really impactful right now, things people who've done things in the past, and just right now, just focusing on like the actual telling of stories part that can it's kind of what Kendrick say. I make music that electrifies. So it's like that's really what I'm looking for right now because I think it's like right now in particular, sometimes it feels like there's no hope and it's all doom and glory. And regardless of how true that is, I think there's a lot of people who are doing some impactful things and bringing about the change to help to heal us, help to grow us. And I'm working on telling stories of people who went from like surviving to thriving in the workplace,
Yes.
and all of that stuff is stuff that make my younger self proud, especially like not even like millions of years ago. I'm not that old, but just even like graduating out of college, I was really struggling with not only entering the workforce, but also doing so as a black person with locks and knowing that I'm entering in these like all white spaces and there's already judgment in general, but people look down on black people. So I wanted to create something that where people know that we're enough and we're amazing and do amazing things. There's a whole community of people for us and people going through these same things too. Because I think, speaking to the post as well, I think when we're kind of isolated, it's easier to go insane, right? Or just be very depressed. But when you're in a community with people who find similarities that you thought made you weird, but really it's like, oh no, this is how we are and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
that's where I see myself is doing that long term. Short term is more like the balance of being an executive and also being a creator at the same time.
Yeah. Mhm. I
Yeah.
I I love that, and how can people follow along? Where can they find the latest and greatest content? I follow you on LinkedIn, but, where
Hey,
do
yeah.
they go to consume all the things?
LinkedIn is definitely the place. Walter Gainer the second. I'm really invested in YouTube this year. I'm creating two channels. One is Boss Locks Media. One is more of a personal media building channel. It's Walter Gainer the second. Substack, I'm venturing into that territory, still over in IG because I'm liking what Meta's doing. Threads is like I don't talk about nothing productive over there. I'm just in the replies, man, sending gifts and memes and all
Yes.
the stuff. But I love Threads, so I just have
Me
fun
too.
over on Threads. I never figured out Twitter. I would love Twitter. I would love consuming, but Threads just feels natural to me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yeah, honestly, wherever you see Mark Patterson, I'm there too, man. And if you
Hey.
follow me, let me know you came from this podcast. I like what you're doing. I'm new to this, but I like what you're building and everything. I like the conversations you're having. I was listening to the one with the guy from Philly. If you're listening to this episode for the first time because you saw me somewhere, just please check out his show and everything. If you made it this far, I mean, that means you enjoyed it, and it's not just because of me. But yeah, also, if you're coming from this show, definitely hit me up, DM me. Like we talked about, I don't just like if you follow me, that's cool, but I want to know, people who are in my universe and ecosystem. So say what's up, say you came from the podcast, and we could kick it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for stopping through the convo room today. I really appreciate your time, Walter. You have a great rest of your day. And thank you all for joining me. See you on the next one.